one of the big stories, obviously, and I hate to start off with in memoriam, but, Jim Irsay, one of my favorite owners in all of major sports, obviously passed away. And with that comes, a succession plan. And there's new people in charge. So ownership is now in the Irsay daughters' hands. Carly Irsay Gordon, Casey Foyt, and Kaylin Jackson. Give me what you got on the Colts ownership, because in the United States we don't have the monarchy. Okay, we don't have the pomp and circumstance that the Queen and all of her family members get to enjoy in England. But here, our royalty is sports teams' ownerships. And I feel like the Colts is one of the blue-blooded American sports teams. And with that, obviously there's turnover. So with that, what you got?
Yeah, Jim Irsay, obviously one of a kind, right? We all followed his tweets. Going to miss those tweets. I don't have many people on tweet alerts. Jim Irsay was somebody I had on tweet alerts. You never knew what he was going to say at any point, right? And in fact, during the press conference yesterday with his daughters, the three sisters, the new ownership group of the Colts, I think Carly Irsay Gordon just said something to the effect of, I learned from my dad not to tweet or something like that. So I don't know that will continue, but these three sisters have been a part of the Colts organization their entire lives, right? And they always knew that they were going to be a part of the team. Obviously, their father's death happened much sooner than anyone had hoped for or expected. However, they did anticipate this. And so there has not been, there won't be any sort of estate plan and, this is going to get ugly and you sell your third to me or anything. That's not what is happening right now. So that is very fortunate. Carly Irsay Gordon, she is the one who was in the middle of the press conference. She's the one that you have seen, if you have a hawk eye, with on the sidelines during games with the headset on, sometimes with the play sheet, right? The wristband.
Yes.
And you know what, Kyle? I
forgot about that, dude.
I know, like, she anticipated this question. Someone asked her about that. And I guess she's never been asked about it on the record before. But she more or less said, look, when I became more involved with this team, I wanted to know every facet of it. She's at almost every practice. She has an office. She's been there for a long time. I've seen her at a number of league meetings, right? And she said, I want to know if somebody, she said, is full of BS or not. I want to know because I'm hearing the play call, I'm starting to understand, I'm asking questions. And now when it comes time on Monday, when the coach is sitting in my office or when we're considering cutting a player or anything like that.
She has a thought.
I have a thought. I know what happened in that moment. You can't, throw anything over my eyes. And so I thought it was an interesting question. She said more owners should do it. I don't think that they should. But she said it saves her from potentially making $1 million mistake.
I think that there is a fine line you walk as an owner when you are, what is it, seen and not heard, or, not seen but heard, maybe at the podium. Sometimes when these owners are around the players, the talent, it can get kind of strange. And obviously those are the people that are in charge of the entire organization. But having spent time in Chicago, George McCaskey always was around and wanted, as Carly Irsay Gordon was talking about, she wanted to, be able to differentiate bullshit from the real. And I respect that. I respect that about Carly, and, nothing but the best of luck to the three women who are going to be taking over Colts ownership. Moving on to the Buffalo Bills, signing of Shaq Thompson, longtime Panthers linebacker, obviously somebody that you're well-versed in his career. What do you make of the Bills signing Shaq Thompson?
Man, I went and I was looking this up the other day because I covered the Panthers from 2012 into 2016. So week one of the 2016 season, they went to the Super Bowl, played the Broncos, lost week one on Thursday Night Football. They faced the Denver Broncos in Denver. So I remembered covering the team when they drafted Shaq Thompson. You know who else remembered drafting Shaq Thompson? Is Sean McDermott, who was the defensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers then, and Brandon Beane, who was in the front office with the Carolina Panthers at that point, under, first Marty Hurney and then Dave Gettleman. And now, of course, both of these two guys are running the Buffalo Bills. So Shaq's coming off a legitimate injury, right? He's coming off that Achilles. He's taken it slow in OTAs and minicamp, but he's somewhere where the calls are going to be familiar. There's going to be a lot of familiarity for him, for someone who, what was it, 10 years, 9 years was with the Carolina Panthers, only knew one place.
10 years. Yeah.
I mean, look, I like to pick up for Buffalo. You get veteran depth, a guy who knows how to do it. You don't have to have him out there week one or anything like that. Let him build up, and hopefully you get the best version of him when you are playing meaningful football. And I say meaningful football. You go back to last year, right, Kyle? Like at Thanksgiving, they had already wrapped up the division.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not playing meaningful football in December. I don't know, but obviously this is a team that's going to be playing in January, and Shaq Thompson will certainly help them.
The Bills, it seems to me, are trying to compile a roster of guys who will not be overwhelmed when that moment, when the rubber meets the road, happens in their season. And, the MO of the Buffalo Bills has been, well, we're a damn good football team. And then some moment comes along in the playoffs and they can't reach for it. They want as many guys like Shaq Thompson as possible. It's, the Bosa signing was a big statement that they want to have guys come playoff time. Shaq Thompson is one of those guys, being a decade-long pro. And you look from 2019 to 2022, he was averaging over 100 tackles per year. So the production's there. Then he had the fibula. Then he had the Achilles. These things come in bunches. So, for him, and as a fan of football, I root for him to get healthy and for the Bills to get some help there from Shaq Thompson. And now we're going to take a little turn to my guy, Aaron Rodgers. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Aaron Rodgers. And I've been a defender of Aaron Rodgers at times. And sometimes you and I have spats about it, not necessarily because you don't like Rodgers, but maybe I'm just in love with his talent. And, I lose sight of some of the things he may be up to. First off, he's married. That was a big surprise. And of course, he made a way to exponentially gain traction for his press conference. He's really good at that. We haven't talked about Aaron Rodgers, the football player, and the Pittsburgh Steelers and what it means for them. I think that it immediately makes them competitors. Obviously, it's going to be a team that's punching up against the Blue Bloods in the National Football League, particularly in their division. But when you've got a guy like Aaron Rodgers, if you see these defenses once in the division, you can usually have some success in the second go-around. For a guy like A-Rod, I can see that happening. But what do you think about Aaron Rodgers being back? And what's up with the deal?
So first of all, shout out to my dear friend Brooke Pryor of ESPN for asking him the question about that ring on his ring finger. We had seen that in a couple photos. She asked, is it an Oura ring? And he was like, no, that's a wedding ring. And said it'd been a couple of months. So, good for him. All those things.
Spring wedding.
Yeah. Were you there?
It's good that it wasn't in the fall.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear podcasts are done about stuff like that. I like the deal for the Steelers. I think I want to give Aaron Rodgers some credit here because a lot of folks in the media have certainly taken their shots at him, and some of it's been deserved. Some of it is undeserved, all those things. He has said since his time in Green Bay that he will take less, and he has taken less money each of the past 3 years. He took a lot less money. I think it was almost like a $30 million pay cut to facilitate the trade to the New York Jets, right? Now, I'm not saying he was doing this out of altruism, right? He wasn't donating the money to charity. He wanted to go play. He said he was going to go take less money. He took less money. If he wanted to get more money from the Pittsburgh Steelers, I could make a really strong argument that he could make a lot more money from the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Daniel Jones is making more money from the Indianapolis Colts than Aaron Rodgers is from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow.
And remember, he was granted his release. He knew of his release the week of Super Bowl, right? So we're talking February. Now, he had his personal things, and he's talked through that. But if he wanted to just say, yeah, guys, I want to go sign somewhere middle of March, start a free agency, what would he have fetched? 25, 30 maybe? Yeah. But he was straight up with folks. He took his time. There was one chair left in the musical chairs, and it was the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's where he wanted to go. Right. Yep. So I do want to give him credit for that. And it is a deal that $10 million guarantee, 13 point something in base. You're going to have some incentives that are all about playtime and playoffs.
Get him to 19.
to get you to 19.5, right? And so, look, it's also easy to do that, right, Kyle, when you have made 15 years of top of the market, at the top of the position, at the top of the market. But all that said, I think that the fit, ultimately, I've been surprised that people have been so down on the Steelers, even before his signing, because I have treated it as though he was going to be the quarterback of the Steelers, right? So, yeah, he wasn't there during voluntary work. Would you have liked him there? Every coach says, yes, of course we would have liked him there. There's no coach who says, nah, he's good. Of course you want him in your building and in your program. But I think he makes this team better. I like what they have tried to do along the offensive line. They're going to have to get another pass catcher. And I don't know if that's wide receiver, and I don't know if that's tight end. They're going to have to get another pass catcher, and they know that. And they've been lowballing teams when they make a call saying, hey, how about this guy? And they're like, no, we're not doing that for a conditional 6th-round pick, right? So they'll get there. But when I look at Rodgers in the second half of last year, was he an all-pro the second half of last year? No, he wasn't. But he didn't.
He was a top 12 quarterback, top 13 quarterback.
So if you continue that trajectory, which I don't know that there's any guarantee, at 41 years old, 2 years removed from an Achilles, that he's going to continue on that trajectory. But if he can almost,
he'll be better physically this year than he was last year. I can tell you that as an athlete who's had to rehab from big time lower body injuries. Aaron Rodgers is going to be better. And I have to point this out about the Pittsburgh Steelers, the way that roster is constructed. They're going to play damn good defense. That's the way the Steelers always do it. If they can get TJ Watt in a helmet week 1, they're going to be just fine defensively. That defensive line's been invested in over the last few years. With Aaron Rodgers, you need some studs on the offensive line. Give him time to be able to develop the play, make those amazing throws. With the New York Jets, they had what was that movie with Sylvester Stallone and Arnold, where it was a bunch of old operators that ended up getting together and they, saved the day or whatever. That was the squad they had in New York. They had a lot of the elder statesmen at the offensive line spot. When I think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got Broderick Jones returning home to left tackle. Troy Fautanu is going to be the right tackle. He didn't play last year. Zach Frazier is a top 5 center in football. They have the blueprint to have a very good offensive line. And my guy, Pat Meyer, is the offensive line coach. He was the assistant O-line coach when I got drafted. He's an Aaron Kromer disciple. You know how I feel about Kromer's.
You love Kromer.
And Pat Meyer's brilliant. He's awesome with blitz pickup. He's somebody that I think can have those high-level cerebral conversations with Aaron Rodgers about blitz pickup, protections. I think Rodgers really gets off to that. I think he respects guys who can have those conversations with him. This offense is going to be fun. The one thing that scares me, not enough pass catchers.
Not enough. They'll get some guys. And like right now, no one is selling because you're not buying at the price that they want to sell at. They'll get there. It'll probably be in July. It's not going to happen anytime soon.